Well, good morning and welcome to City Hall. We'll get started with our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. John DeVere is here. He's the senior pastor at Hope Church. He'll lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Larry McAtee to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand?
Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, would you come and allow your great heart to be manifested here today? More than all the facts, all the figures, all the numbers, all the studies. Father, would you overcome all of our fears? Would you overcome all of our concerns and worries? And Lord, and just guide us today, we ask. And we thank you for that. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Face the flag. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a wonderful relationship with Oklahoma City University, and from time to time, we are so honored to have a performer or two come into our chambers and give us an example of what we might see in an upcoming performance on the OCU campus. And today is one of those days. We're going to hear from the opera Don Giovanni. We have Andrea Howland Myers, who's from North Carolina, and Caleb Lester, who is a native Oklahoman. And I'll let you two take it from there.
We are here to tell you a little bit about and give you a taste of our show, Don Giovanni, which opens at OCU this Friday. Shows are Friday at 8, Saturday at 8, and a Sunday matinee at 3. Tickets are $12, $18, or $25 for a variety of seats in different areas of the theater. It's a great show. A lot of opera lovers say that it's Mozart's greatest masterpiece, and there really is some phenomenal music. It's there's comedy, there's tragedy. It's a great story, too. There's something for everything. So come see it. This is the famous duet La Chibera Romano from the first act.
So this weekend on the OCU campus, thank you so much. You're so talented, and we're very pleased that you came down to see us today. All right, who wants to follow that? All right, call the meeting to order. We have item 3A. This is the appointment to the Park Commission. All right, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 3A. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Then on to item 4. This is the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item A is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for February 6th, and item B is to approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for February 9th. All right, we're ready to vote on item 4. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple this morning. On page 17, under item 8F1, item G, 1416 Northeast 14th Street. We ask that be stricken. It's now occupied. And item M, 716 Northeast 32nd Street. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured.
Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, recess the council meeting. Convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 7 items.
Move the items.
All right. Comments or questions? All right. Cast your votes on the MFA. Passes unanimously. All right. Adjourn OCMFA. Convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. There are 4 items. All right. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on the PPA. Passes unanimously. And we'll reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. I know we're going to have a presentation from the police chief in a moment, but any other council considerations? Okay. A, C, A, D. All right. F. Okay.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, Sam, did you ask the question if there was going to be a presentation about that? Good, thank you.
Yes.
That was my question as well.
Q. All right, Brian, you want to jump in on AC and AD?
AC is a donation of a piece of property from the Western Heights School District to the City of Oklahoma City. And then AD is an agreement leasing that property to the community college, which currently leases that property. I don't believe that we're in the business of accumulating property, and I would like to see in a couple of weeks if we couldn't arrange a donation of that property to the community college.
We'd be happy to do that, sir.
All right, Skip, item F.
Well, I would like to find someone, if someone here could give me a little bit more information in reference to this resolution or the applicant's resolution for funds under the neighborhood revitalization.
Why don't we do the police presentation? Well, Wiley's here. Very good.
Yes, sir, and I missed your question. I'm sorry.
Yes. The LD Smith Properties, LLC.
Yes, sir.
It referenced to the Capitol Medical Center and the JFK area, and I'm concerned, is this a continuation of rental properties, or is this housing?
These are homes or properties being acquired, and they do plan to rehab them for rental. It's part of a program that was in our consolidated plan last year, and there are about 4 awardees that have successfully applied for and will be coming before you with requests for assistance on providing rental housing. So yes, sir. The direct answer: it is rental housing that is being considered.
My concern is that I just met with some citizens in reference to the lower JFK area, and with the development that's going on presently, brand new development in the area, some of the concerns continues to be in reference to the stability of ownership and the value of the property if we are going to continue to allow and continue to place rental properties in the mix of some of these homes that people are expecting to be long-range ownership programs for a real redevelopment of the area. And I'm just a little concerned as to why do we continue to bring in these low rental programs into a development that was already strangled because of low rental properties. And then when we go through all the efforts of trying to redevelop the area, and then it seems like we're going right back to the same thing that destroyed the area.
Well, I think the issue, Councilman, is one of strong landlords and having it seems there's always going to be a need for rental property. People are not going to all be able to afford housing. And one of the things that we've looked for is the opportunity to get strong landlords in housing that's brought up to minimum and good property standards that, in effect, will contribute to the community in terms of dealing with rental housing in a positive way. So it's not that we're making a giant push to flood the area with rental housing, but it's to meet a basic need. And I think that's what this proposal is after. We share your concern about the neighborhood's decline because of poor landlords and properties going into speculative ownership. Yes, that's always a negative. And if everybody could own a home, that would be the perfect world. But it seems that that's not, it's not going to happen. And so we're trying to deal with the rental issue.
Well, and don't take my statement because I've had to rent before, so.
Sure.
But the point is that when there's a developed area that you're trying to promote as far as ownership in the area, to redevelop an area that, as I stated, has been really blighted and strangled because you have these absent landlords who come in and they continue to participate in programs with city and federal funds, and then there's nobody to hold accountable for the maintenance and the upkeep of the property that they own. I just have a problem with the continuation of us doing this without having some real, controls. I had asked for an ordinance to at least look at the issue of, how we could hold some of these landlords more responsible for their properties, and we haven't received it yet. But and even the Capital Medical Center complex area, where are these properties at? It's easy to say the Capital Medical Center and the JFK, but can we identify the particular location of these properties that these individuals are asking for funding for?
I don't know if Mr. Smith is here this morning. You have the addresses? I know he has been looking at homes just south of 23rd Street and east of Kelly, a couple of opportunities there. The street name escapes me, but it'd be pretty close to 23rd Street. Near Glen Ellen Park. Is it Glen Ellen Park that's right there?
Well, is there any major heartburn to defer this matter? And I would like to know exactly. This is in my ward, and I get bombarded almost every week with people who are buying in the lower JFK area, with people who are hearing rumors about people who are just buying up properties for rental property. And I would like to be able to give some straight answers to some of these citizens as they ask me. And as I see here, to sit here and just say, well, $269,000 on nothing but a pure speculation, when an individual don't and have not identified specifically where the properties are, what he really plans to do with the properties, I have a problem with that. Okay. Well, and I'm not, and this is, while your department has been very, very kind to me in reference to answering questions, but I want to look at this more.
We'll be happy to explore it with you, yes, sir. I can tell you that the applicant on this is a resident of the Northeast community. It's Leonardo Smith. He lives north of 23rd and west of Kelly in that Capitol Square area there, and has successfully. One of the things that led to his selection was his experience. He has done successful rehabs in that area, and has been active with that neighborhood association there.
Councilman, would you like to meet with the proposed developer? We could certainly set up a meeting so he can share with you his thoughts and ideas.
Surely. We'd be happy to set that up.
Thank you.
So we'll defer to that for
Yes, sir.
2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you want to make that a motion, Skip?
Yes.
Let's see. We have a motion and a second to defer item F for 2 weeks. Is that what I heard? All right. Cast your votes. That item is deferred. Pat, you wanted to speak on item Q?
Q.2, Your Honor. I have just a couple of questions. This is a real exciting project. This is the integrated traffic control system throughout the Oklahoma City, where ultimately all our traffic signals will be controlled from the central area to keep traffic flowing. And I've got two questions. One is the timing of the actual installation. This is going out for the engineering part. I'd like to know how long that's going to take. And then if we do have money in GEO bonds available to go ahead and get the construction done as quickly as we can.
We received I believe the cutoff for the RFPs was either last week or late the week before. So we have received in all of the RFPs, and staff is going through those. We did receive a number of them. We plan to come before you all probably in March with an update on the entire project. And yes, there's bond money available to implement this.
Good. I have one other question. They talk about the installation of some cameras. They call them ETZ cameras, pan, tilt, and zoom. And my assumption is, and I hope I'm right, that those are just to monitor the traffic flow. We're not proposing a system whereby we can capture people violating traffic laws?
No, it's to monitor the traffic flow at those individual locations and actually change the timing at an individual location from our central office, depending on what conditions are present.
That's what I assumed, and I'm glad it came out that way. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Meg?
Dennis, just a quick question. Can you just clarify that for me? So does this mean that when you're leaving the Ford Center after a Thunder game, the lights on Broadway will actually be synchronized rather than everyone stop?
They will hopefully be a lot better than they are now.
Great. Thank you.
Good answer, Dennis. All right. If we're through discussing the consent docket, we have a presentation from the police chief, Bill City. Yeah.
I would just like to recognize Dr. Paul Seacrest. He came in just after I'd mentioned the items from the community college. I want to just give him, he told me he'd be here for support. So thank you, Dr. Seacrest. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Chief, you want to come up and give us a presentation on the truancy effort that you and your department has been making?
Yeah. Thank you this morning for having me and entertaining this the truancy ordinance that we've been working on for quite some time. It's been a long time coming. I'd like to recognize Dr. Springer with the Oklahoma City Public Schools that has worked with us over the past several years in developing the truancy program and has been very supportive in working with us and also with the school board in providing a better understanding of what is needed within Oklahoma City. Also, Ed Hasbrook, our legal counsel who has worked on this, is also here today to answer any questions legally that I may not be able to answer for you. The ordinance itself, the bottom line here is trying to keep kids in school. The truancy rate's pretty high and has been quite high in the Oklahoma City public school system. But that also equates to a fairly high dropout rate. And the whole premise here is to keep kids in school. For law enforcement is an interest because the studies have shown that if you keep kids in school, that they're less likely to be involved in gangs or any other types of criminal activities. So we obviously have an interest here. It has the potential long-term to lower crime rates within our community. Obviously, the schools have a variety of interests, and the best interest of our kids in providing a quality education so they can become good quality citizens, productive citizens within this community. So the truancy ordinance itself, and of course we've talked in the past about the grants, and you approved the the federal grants that allowed us to add 4 truancy officers to our truancy program, which gives us a total of 6. We had 2 last year with the pilot program. We've talked about the success of that within the middle schools and how we reduced the truancy rate in our target middle schools by just having the officers going out, meeting with the parents, and in most cases getting voluntary compliance. And that is really the goal with the program itself, is to get voluntary compliance to begin with. The truancy ordinance that you are looking at today is just another tool for the officers in the effect that we cannot get voluntary compliance from the parents. I mean, there's some parents that you have the first meeting, they're going to say they're going to have their kids back at school. You have a second meeting, you have some counseling, and they're able to get their kids back in school. But there's going to be some that don't. And at that point, we feel like the truancy ordinance is really going to give law enforcement and schools a tool to be able to force these parents into the municipal court system before we get to the point where we're going to district court. And this ordinance varies in the state law in that the state law addresses the parents. You only file on the parents in state court, and you have to have 10 absences within a semester before you can file that charge and get those to state court. And believe me, David Prater has been very, very diligent in working with us when we get to that point. Our hopes with this ordinance is we don't get to that point, that we have less parents and less kids that ended up in district court by catching them early. And if we can't catch them within 2 or 3 absences and get their attention in that regard after bringing them through our municipal courts, and they continue to do that, then they will still end up in district court. But this is really an avenue to try to reduce that. So the ordinance here, the ordinance that's been written here for the city of Oklahoma City will actually, the charge will be against the student, the child, anywhere from the ages of 12 to 18. The child can actually be written a truancy violation and end up in our municipal courts along with the parent for a truancy violation. So that's how this law is different from the state law. And we can do it with 1 absence, 2 absences, 3 absences. Again, our idea in the program and philosophy is to have voluntary compliance and notification before we get to those 2 or 3 absences and have to issue a citation. So in most cases, the citation wouldn't be issued until maybe 3 absences or more, after we've already contacted and put the parents on notice that their child is out of school. At that point, the child can be issued a citation. What it does also is it allows us to enter into an agreement, and by state law, we enter into an agreement with the public school system, in this case, the Oklahoma City Public School System, and that's our primary target right now is the Oklahoma City Public School System. Enter into an agreement where we designate specific positions within the police department, police officers that are actually truancy officers. And by state law, those agreements have to be made between the school system and that agency, whether it's a non-sworn private sector or it's law enforcement. In this case, it's us, it's law enforcement. So we have our FACT officers, which will have 4, our family awareness and community teaming. And then we also have the additional truancy officers, the 6 truancy officers. We also have our school resource officers that are currently in the public in all high schools that will also be designated. This allows them to access school records, where every officer within the police department will not be able to access school records, but they can access our truancy officers who have access to records, can verify whether or not a student is supposed to be in school. Because this law does require that we verify that a student is actually out of school without an excuse. The excuse could range from religious reasons, observation of a religious holiday, that they're out of school when everybody else is in school. It could be for mental health reasons. It could be for medical reasons. There's a variety of legitimate reasons a child would be out of school. So if they are out of school, it requires that we verify that they are not out of school without a legitimate reason. The school would classify them as absent and truant under the guidelines of state law and this ordinance. So it's not necessarily as easy a process, but it is a good process that really that makes it, it makes it where we're not putting kids in custody or writing citations that don't have a legitimate reason for being out of school. Before we started our programs, we were just picking kids up and taking them to CIC and dropping them off. There's nothing. There's no consequences. There was nothing that held anybody responsible, whether it was the child or the parent. Parent picked them up, thank you for babysitting my child, and took them home. And it was just a continuing pattern that had really no consequences or any legitimate effects. So what we're hoping here is it does have some consequences at some point for the child, for the parents. If they're arrested the first time and go to municipal court, the fine can be up to $50. The second time, the second offense, I believe it's $100, and the third offense, $250. Now, included in that, we also, with our grant funds this year, we're actually hiring a probation officer through some of our burn grant funds for the courts so that they can actually work with the parents and work with the students, so they're not just writing a ticket and on their way. There may be some other things that they are required to do. There may be some counseling and some probationary type requirements on the parent or student, depending on the infraction and how serious it is. So we do have an additional probation officer within the courts, municipal courts, to handle that. They think they can handle the caseload, additional caseload, with the judges that they had. We've looked at all that type of impact. So, but the ordinance basically is going to allow the officers to be able to detain if that student is within the district. If they're truant and they're within the school district and between the ages of 12 and 18, then the officers will be able to actually detain the child and write the citation and take them to put them in the custody of their parents, the schools, or take them to the CIC if none of those are able or willing to take them at that point, so that we can make contact and have the parent come pick them up at some point. So,
Chief, how do we decide when we detain a child, whether it goes to the parent, whether it goes back to school, or whether we take that? And what CIC is?
CIC is the intervention, the community intervention center that we contract with to place juveniles in for the things that aren't quite as serious. I mean, if it's a burglary or something more serious, then they don't go to CIC. But for minor offenses, misdemeanor offenses, then that's a holding area so that the parents can come and pick them up. We may write them for trespassing or things like that and put them in CIC if we can't get hold of a parent. And in most cases with the school officers, probably there is some discretion left up to the police officer, but probably the first choice we try to contact the parents. If they can't contact the parents, probably the schools, either one, either the parent or the schools. The last resort would be the CIC, where it's basically just a holding center until they're able to contact somebody that will take them. Now, it may be a student the school's having problems with or something like that for whatever reason. Would give them the discretion as to not accepting that student back in the school at that point based on whatever reason, and they would go to CIC until we're able to contact the parent. So, but it does allow them to detain that child. Now, outside the school district, say Oklahoma City's made up of a lot of school districts, and if that student is outside the school district, things become a little bit more complicated. If they're from Oklahoma City by state law, if they're outside the school district, we really can't detain them. But we do have the option of writing a citation out of custody, making a report, and making sure that that parent is notified to get them into municipal court. We just can't take them into custody at that point. Now, we will look, I think, at some point in trying to maybe change state law, because I'm not sure what the reasonings were for that, but it would make sense to maybe try to change state law that would allow us to take kids in custody, even if they aren't in the district in which they're absent from. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
Larry, then Sam.
Two questions, Chief. The additional officers, I know you've stated this before, the 4 new police officers and lieutenant that were funded through the ARRA.
Yes.
That funding goes for how long?
3 years.
3 years, okay.
It's 3 years, but the city is committed to additional year. So it's a 4-year.
We pick up the tab that 4th year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Third year.
4th year.
Oh, the 4th year.
Yeah, it's funded for 3 years, and then we pick up the 4th year.
Okay. I'm mistaken. Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'm a little bit confused. The ordinance itself is written here applies throughout Oklahoma City.
Yes.
But if a kid, for example, is a student at Western Heights, how is this ordinance going to impact him, and how is it going to impact the Western Heights School District?
Western Heights, first off, Putnam City has some of the same issues. Now, Western Heights can have a truancy officer. They can hire, and some schools do. A lot of the schools in the public school system have an attendance officer that acts as their truancy officer also, and we will work closely with them, that we could allow them to actually file the complaint and write the citation and get them into municipal court. Western Heights, if they have an attendance officer or a truancy officer, could write them a city citation if it's within the, obviously the corporate limits of Oklahoma City, and we could allow them to sign that citation and also get them into municipal court. So it still could apply. Now they won't have an agreement with Oklahoma City to act as their truancy officers, but they can hire, like Putnam City has their own officers, and the way I understand is Putnam City is going to have their police officers actually be their truancy officers and could write a city citation and get them into our municipal court.
So any school district that has a truancy officer, I just put Western Heights out as an example, but Putnam City or Western Heights or any other school district where the students are within Oklahoma City boundaries, this ordinance would apply to them, and that fine schedule would apply to them also.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. Meg, the Community Intervention Center is housed within Youth Services out at Northeast 50th near Santa Fe. And I believe, Chief, in that holding center, detention center, it's a maximum for any youngster that's picked up 24 hours. This is not a long-term holding center.
No, it's just temporary.
Mayor, I just would ask, with Superintendent Springer present here today, we've talked repeatedly here at the council that once we pass the bricks and mortar of MAPS 3, how does the city and the school system partner together in issues that are not bricks and mortar? For me, this is one of the significant ways that we have engaged in partnership with Oklahoma City schools. Dropout, I think we're all familiar with the dropout statistics, the impact it has, not just on the child not getting back to school, but the impact it has on our economy, the impact it has on crime. It just permeates society. And I think there's no more important step than we've taken with the school system beyond MAPS 3 than this particular effort. And I wonder if Superintendent Springer just take a few minutes to talk about the importance of this partnership and relationship with our city.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you this morning. We want to have a relationship that is unlike any relationship you can find anywhere in the country. We believe that the school system and the city of Oklahoma City have common goals, that we want this to be a community that people want to come to and live here and have their children educated in this community. We believe that initiatives like this need to happen more. We need to work together. We need to have some synergy. We have a lot of resources separate. We need to have those resources joined at the hip so that we get some synergy with what we do. Oklahoma City schools, 42,000 children. About 90% of the time, 90% of our children are at school every day. But that's 4,000 children that aren't. And we need to be able to do what we can do together and to forge relationships like this, probably on a whole series of issues. I think the Maps for Kids issues that this community and the school district participated in kind of set the foundation for such a relationship. But this situation we're talking about this morning is unlike what you're going to find just about anywhere else in the country. School systems and cities haven't done a very good job of working together in a collaborative way. Oklahoma City has. And I think this is a good example of what can happen when we talk about a common issue and then try to solve it together. The idea here, and this could be the beginning of our relationship getting stronger, that there are issues that will come up in the future, and just having a relationship, having this kind of discussion with the chief. When I came to the office I'm in, the day after I took the job, the first person I went to see was Chief City. You know, I know that part of the problem we have in this community is a gang problem, and we agreed the gang problem is not the problem of Oklahoma City or the school district, it's our problem. And we need to be able to deal with those kind of issues together in a joint kind of a way, because together we can do great things. I'm hoping that we can forge a relationship where we work together to the common good of the people of Oklahoma City, and at the same time cause this community to be a destination for young families to want to come to live and invest in properties and businesses. But this morning, this is a very neat kind of a relationship that we're talking about, and I'm just very excited about it. I think that the FACT program, you know, basically the faith-based group with the police department, I've knocked on some doors with the police, asking families, what can we do to help you to have your child come to school? We need to do more of that. And I've been talking to the chief about, you know, we need to develop some structures so that we do more of that. Having a faith-based person, somebody from the city, a person from the school district, working, asking that parent, what can we do to help you? We need to do some things that are going to be breakthrough. We've had enough incremental kind of improvement in our school district and in our community. We need to begin to do some things that are going to transform our relationship. And this is one of those things, I believe.
Yeah. Well put. Questions for either Carl or the chief?
No, Mayor, I just wanted to say that, you know, we're hearing this morning largely about the stick, the enforcement and the fines. I mentioned last fall I had the opportunity to just go on a drive along with one of the truancy officers and visited several homes and got to see the carrot part of the program. Where the police officer that I was with, we visited a grandparent in one home, another home was a high school student who was home apparently sick, at least that's what he said. But just the demeanor of this police officer and the effort to talk with the grandparent and the high school student, I remember vividly looking at that high school student directly in the eyes, and she said to him, son, what time do your parents get home from work? They weren't at home. And when he told her, he said, I'll be back at that time to visit with your parents. But again, in a way that it was really conveyed that we want your student, we want your child in school. This is not a matter of how big a fine we can slap on you. And that's the intent in this, and that's the experience that I had last fall. And I'm looking forward to the additional officers. And thank you, Superintendent, for coming down.
Thanks, Carl. And with that, I believe we're ready to vote on the consent docket. We already have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We're on to the concurrence docket. It's like 24 items. Okay. Is there any individual consideration on the concurrence docket? We're ready to go? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We're on to item 8. These are items that require a separate vote. We'll start with a series of zoning cases, the first of which is in Ward 8. The address is 13401 North Morgan Road. It's currently AA agricultural. It would become an RA2 single-family, 2.5-acre rural residential district. Pat?
Thank you, Your Honor. Did anybody, excuse me, sign up to speak on this? There were no protests at the Planning Commission level. This is in an area that is a semi-rural area. It's developing. This is a logical step in the progress out there. And if there are any questions, we can get the applicant in here, answer those questions. But I would move for approval on this particular item.
All right. We have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 8A. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
And, Your Honor, I would also like to ask for the emergency on this.
and vote on the emergency. Emergency passes unanimously.
Thank you, John.
Item 8B has been deferred until March 9th, so we're on to item C. This item is in Ward 6. It's a zoning case at 2012 Westwood Boulevard, and, well, this is to construct a communications tower. Fairly simple. Meg, is this one all right?
Yeah, it's really simple.
Okay.
The only question I have, this is in Rotary Park. I don't have my mic on. This tower's being constructed in Rotary Park?
Yes, right on the very
Right on the
edge by
very
the
edge,
railroad
okay.
track.
And I want to confirm that we talked to the Police Athletic League and everybody's on board with this.
I can't confirm that we did. We sent the police department a notice of this, the development review form. I don't know that we specifically talked to that group or not.
But they had, I mean, they would have
No.
protested if they had any issue, so I would go ahead and move approval of this.
All right, we're voting on item 8C. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8D, looks like we're removing some no parking anytime signs on 48th Street. It's in Ward 7, Skip.
Yes, this is to facilitate the flow of traffic as it relates to Dove Science Academy, and I haven't received any objections to this. Originally, I had deferred it so I could make sure that it was in the area that I thought it was, and so I would move this for passage.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second on item 8D. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8E is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any item listed under 8E? Anyone signed up? All right. We have a motion. How about a second?
Are you signed up, sir?
Oh, we do have someone. Well, if you would step to the microphone, and we'll need your name and address for the record.
Juan Perez.
Okay. And well, which item were you wishing to speak on?
Just weather hasn't gave me time to clean up.
Okay, what was the address?
1320 Southwest 22nd. I'm trying to move vehicles around and whatnot, trying to get them out of my
All right,
yard.
so this is in Ward 6?
Yes.
Looks like, is this 1320 Southwest 22nd?
Yeah.
All right. Meg?
Can I have staff give us a brief briefing on the situation?
It's the garage.
And it's ours. Oh, go ahead.
Great. That was just fire damage. There's holes in the roof, holes in the outer wall, foundation problems. It's pretty self-evident from the photos.
And so this was cited and targeted for demolition?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, and
I'm trying to get everything fixed, but like I said, weather permitting, I work outside. I got a pay stub so y'all can see that it's not that I don't want to fix this. With the weather outside, I do construction work. I work outside. And right now, I don't have the money to.
have you...
But I
Oh, my
am
gosh.
trying to fix the problem.
Does it currently have this graffiti on it?
Do what?
Does it currently have this graffiti?
I don't understand.
Yes, that's okay.
Does it look like that currently?
Oh, yes. Yes, I've tried to patch, like right there, I was trying to patch some of the problem.
How about starting by painting over the graffiti?
Yes, I've tried to roll. I bought a gallon of paint. I'm trying. As you can see, I've tried to roll, and it's not doing any good yet. But I'm trying to get all that taken care of.
He'll have 30 days in which to supply us with a plan to save it if that's his intention.
I mean, the weather's been like rain after rain after rain. And
I don't think, the weather hasn't been so bad that you couldn't
Yeah.
paint that. I understand you may not be able to get up and roof it or do some other things, but you can get that painted pretty quickly. And that is a
And I-
very
and I
high
will.
priority of the city, and it's extremely important for your neighborhood.
I will. I'll do.
I think in this case, if you can demonstrate that you're beginning to do some work, I know that our staff will work with you, but
Okay.
this is a mess.
All right.
And it either needs to be repaired or it needs to be taken down.
I'll try to repair it as soon as possible.
Are you living in this property?
Yes.
Okay. It just looks like it just needs a lot of cleanup.
Yes, I need to really get after it.
Okay, if you'll
I mean,
stay
like I
in
said,
touch with
weather
our staff,
permitting,
if you stay in touch with our staff, you probably won't need to come down here again.
Okay.
But if it doesn't start looking better, then they will have the right to get out there and do something about it for the
that's
respect
fine.
of your neighbors and the other
Yes.
property owners in the
Yes.
neighborhood. All right?
All right.
And I'd like to make a specific point one more time about this graffiti. I'd like the staff to drive by within the next week and
Okay.
be sure that graffiti is gone.
Okay, that's fine. I'll see that it's taken care of.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down today. All right, we ready to vote on item 8E? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On item 8F, this is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any item listed under 8F? All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on 8F, and it passed unanimously. Item 8G is a resolution with some sale of some GO bonds. Anybody have any questions or comments on this? Yeah, Larry?
The question, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't get to fully ask my question before council. We're talking about selling $29 million in GOLD bonds.
Yes, sir.
And, of course, what we're trying to do is sell bonds, the GOLD bonds and the other bonds in the 2007 bond issue to keep the millage level at the current rate to be able to pay off those bonds.
What we're trying to do, yeah, that's correct. We're trying to keep the mill level even.
Okay. Now, my question is one of this. We don't really have a need today for the $29 million in GOLD bonds. We previously issued some GOLD bonds, and we haven't expended that. You were telling me that we do get interest payments off of this $29 million.
These are taxable bonds, so they're handled differently than the general. That's why we're having separate sales. They're taxable bonds, and so yes, they have different rules on.
Well, my question is, could we use some of this? Could we have used some of this $29 million for road resurfacing, bridge projects, other projects in that 2007 bond program, and not just have them gathering interest for the economic development?
We probably could have, but as we developed our package about what we thought we were going to have to keep the mill levy even, with the interest rates that came in as low as they did on the GO bonds, we discovered that we've got additional capacity out there to keep that mill levy up, and so we have some additional capacity. Had we known early on and could have planned for that we knew that we were going to maintain our AAA rating and that the interest rates were going to be so low as they were on the bond issue, we probably would have issued some more regular GO debt and less GOLD bonds.
Should we revisit that right now, or what is the recommendation? Just to go ahead with it?
Our recommendation is to go forward. To go back and have a small another GO bond sale would probably be difficult at this time.
Let me just try to fill in a few of the blanks here. First of all, with the GOLD bond issue, they are taxable bonds, and we have a lot more flexibility with taxable bonds than we do with our tax-exempt infrastructure bonds. We didn't sell GOLD bonds last year, if you recall. So we are kind of behind on what our original schedule was to complete that authorization. So, this helps us make up for that year when we didn't sell any. Interest rates are at probably the lowest they've been in 40 or 50 years. So this gives us an opportunity to issue these taxable bonds and get this authorization out of the way, so to speak, and does give us the opportunity to possibly issue more infrastructure bonds in the future more quickly than what we originally had anticipated. We did have very low interest rates on our tax-exempt sale. We also received a very large premium. We had a $2 million premium on the infrastructure sale. So that caused us to have to adjust our calculations for the GOLD bond sale. And it is larger than what we originally anticipated because of the low interest rates and the large premium. I think the other thing to remember about economic development, though, is that we don't know when we're going to need the money necessarily. And we don't have expenditure requirements on taxable bonds the way we do on tax-exempt. So if we have the opportunity to help our local economy and attract a major employer here, it's important to have the money on hand in order to do that. And although we haven't spent all of the GOLD bond money that we have on hand right now, we have obligated a great deal of it. And we've handled it. There's the possibility that something could come along that it requires a different kind of incentive package than what we've provided in the past. And the GOLD bond issue and the program gives us the opportunity to do that. So I think our recommendation from staff is to go ahead with the $29 million sale. The other thing I'd say about an infrastructure sale is, you have to be careful about the size of the sale and the fees and the costs associated with issuance. So you don't want to get it too small. And that's something that we really look at when we go to size bond issues. So you don't want to get them, smaller than $10 to $15 million. So.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Brian.
Will any of this money be used in the quarter store area for land acquisition?
No.
It won't? Okay. And the other thing is, excuse me, so basically, when we sell the bonds, we're borrowing the money, and then we're investing it and getting a return on that money?
Yes.
Are we investing it at a higher rate than what we're borrowing it at?
No, we're not. Not right now. We're not. That's not possible right
So we're issuing the bonds and we're borrowing the money, but we're losing money every month or every year, however.
We are paying in interest slightly more than what we can earn on them right now.
Okay.
I can't say that's always going to be true.
So do legally we have to do this?
No, legally we do not
We
have
don't
to.
have to do this? Okay.
Comments or questions from Kathy? Yeah, Larry?
Yeah, well, I understand. I appreciate the information, Kathy. I still have a little bit of a problem. Maybe I'm the only one that does. In putting money off to earn interest and at a cost when we've got infrastructure needs that we'll just use potholes as an example. And I know that this money's not going to, the infrastructure wouldn't fix potholes, but it would do bridges or park projects or something like that. Maybe I'm the only one that's concerned. I just would rather see more of the money today go for infrastructure when we don't need it today. In the future, hopefully we will, and we don't know when that could be. It could be tomorrow. So that could be one of these deals where, I'd be eating words next week. But as it stands right now, infrastructure seems to me to have a little more priority than economic development.
Again, Larry, wouldn't it be an issue if we used up the capacity to sell bonds on infrastructure projects now, a month from now had a need for money in the Economic Development Trust? We wouldn't be able to issue bonds then because... I
agree. That's why I said I'd have to eat my words tomorrow.
And then I think the two things that I think are critical is, first of all, the interest rates right now are very favorable. And we may lose money initially, but I would suspect that this interest rate trough that we're in is not going to last forever. And sometime within the 30-year period those bonds are outstanding, we may be able to invest them at a higher rate. Second thing I think we need to take advantage of, and this may not last given the current economic condition, is the fact the city has a AAA rating right now. And a year from now, given the economic financial situation, that may or may not be the case. So I think it would be prudent to take advantage of those two items when we can.
All right. Brian, then Meg.
Can we not just do the middle, which is not issue the GO bonds, or not issue either bonds? And so the $29 million capacity is still there if we need it. But like Larry said, we're not losing money on a hypothetical that we may or may not need it, or, is that not possible?
Well, Brian, when we need the money and go to the market, then we lose some flexibility. Secondly, we have an opportunity right now because of low interest rates to do a fairly efficient transaction. And thirdly, I'm not sure, as I said earlier, how long we can count on our AAA rating. And so we may have to go, and if we waited 6 months, two of those factors may change significantly: interest rates, environment, and our rating.
There's a lot of moving parts to this. Yeah. And one of the keys that it's the overriding is to keep the mill levy at 16, which has been a council policy to do so. And so that's one of the overriding things we have. If we had had 20/20 hindsight, and had we known they were going to retain a AAA rating, and had we known we were going to get a $2 million premium when we issued the GO bonds, and if we knew that the interest rates were going to be so low, we probably would have had more GO bond programs and less gold bonds monies at this point in time. It's great to sit here with 20/20 hindsight, but because of some of the things that have been in our favor, very positive things toward us, we're able to be in a situation now when you plug these different factors in to maintain the 16 mills. We've got to go with the $29 million, which does give us flexibility. First of all, it maximizes low interest rates, but gives us flexibility again for future opportunities that are out there. it's hard at this point to go and do another GO bond issue, a tax-exempt GO bond issue, and do infrastructure needs, because it would be such a small issue, and putting that small issue out, the premium you'd be paying on the sale of that, I think would not make it particularly cost-effective. But that's the issue. The issue is we don't have 20/20 hindsight, and we made some assumptions several months ago, and some things have changed subsequent to that.
And when we made those assumptions, we actually did add to the infrastructure bond sale amount from what we had originally estimated. I mean, we did try to take into account as much of this positive interest rate environment as we could. We just didn't realize it was quite as good.
And the other factor is we weren't sure how well the Oklahoma County property, or the Oklahoma City property values were going to hold at the time. There were some concerns it was going to level off or potentially drop as we made our projections. Well, they haven't. They've not only held, they've gained some. So that's another factor in the equation as we go forward. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and so when we sit back in October, November, when we made some of these projections and made those, some things changed. All of them changed in our benefit, in our favor. But a lot of things did change as we moved forward.
Okay. Meg?
I really was just going to make a quick comment along those same lines, which is, if I heard this correctly, by issuing these GOLT bonds today and keeping that mill rate at 16, we then will be in a better position to accelerate some of the non-taxable bonds going forward for infrastructure.
Right. Yeah, it gives us a lot of flexibility in the future to speed up some of our infrastructure sales from what we originally anticipated.
So that seems like a win-win to me.
Larry?
But just so I clarify, speeding up, we're going to be out of infrastructure bond sales for the rest of this calendar year. So speeding up would be next year.
Next year,
we're talking
yes.
about.
Yeah.
As opposed to, is $29 million too small an offering for infrastructure bonds? A $29 million offer?
No, probably not.
So one option would be to take all $29 million and use it for infrastructure right now.
Isn't that going to change the mill levy going in the future?
Well,
if we go below it now and we want to maintain the average?
And change some calculations, because taxable bonds have a slightly higher interest rate than tax exempt. I would be more concerned about timing at this point. We can't sell bonds past about May 1st and not get them on the mill levy. So we start getting into some timing issues, without getting everything completed, the bond sale closed, and the calculations made that are necessary to get them on the tax rolls. There are a lot of moving parts to these bond sales, and it takes time to put together the documents and the offering. We would have to have another rating visit. Potentially, we'd have to have a new official statement, preliminary official statement. There's just a lot of steps in the process, but we can do our best to do that if that's what the council desires.
I think it's beyond the typical complexity of this council to second-guess our budget department. If they feel like we need to go on, even if there are variables in both directions, we need to move forward on it. My recommendation, I'll take a motion. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, cast your votes. It passes by a count of 7-2. Item H has a slight clarification issue that I think we can fix with an amendment. On the naming of the Skydance Bridge, it should read Oklahoma City Skydance Bridge. If I could get an amendment on that, then we can vote on it. Okay? How about a second? All right. Cast your votes for amending item 8H to read the naming of the Oklahoma City Skydance Bridge.
The reason we're doing this, we don't typically go through this. This is a requirement vote out. They ask that we do the official naming of it. And secondly, that the modification that the mayor, the amendment that he made, is agreeable to the artist or the art.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8I, I understand we do need executive session?
Yes, sir.
All right. Cast your votes on 8I. Item is moved. And item 8J, I understand we do need executive session. All right, cast your votes, and it's moved. On item 8K, these are claims recommended for denial. We have one person that signed up. Reba Carter? Yes. Would you step to the microphone, please? Yes. You might need to pull the microphone down slightly, and we'll need you to give us your name and address again just for the record.
It's Reba Carter, 1008 Plato Place, Apartment G,
Okay.
Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73107.
And in reading the note you supplied, you have some damage to your car from running over a manhole cover.
Yes.
And I have a picture of it here. I don't know, has the rest of the council seen this? I can pass this along. Everyone has one?
I have one
Okay.
here on the
You want
manhole
to
cover.
tell us what happened?
Well, when you turn off of the Walker onto 12th Street, it's like a downhill slope. And when you come down that hill, then that manhole cover is up above the ground. It tore my whole transmission pan back, broke 2 bolts off of the front of it. And
So your tires straddled the manhole cover, and the transmission was sitting a little bit low, and they hit the manhole
well, my
cover?
car sits low. It's a Chevy Cavalier anyway. It sits low anyway.
Right, so your tires went on each side of it.
Well, no, because my transmission's over more on my driver's side. It's just, but then it put just a straight tear in my oil pan also.
Okay.
But the picture I have here, the manhole cover's like this, because they sent an application, then they told me to take pictures of everything. And so the day I called in, I told them it was 11th Street, the wrong street, accidentally, and the man called me and asked me where it was because he couldn't find it. And when I went out, they had cones around all of the manhole covers on that street. But I went ahead and moved the cones over some and took a picture.
Okay. What can you supply us with information on this?
The information that we've received, Amy Harrison, Municipal Counselor's Office, sorry. The information that we've received is that we had no prior notice of any problem with this manhole cover. And in addition, one of our staff went out to this location and took a ruler and measured, and at most it was almost an inch above the ground, which is considered a trivial defect.
Okay. Would you say this is fairly typical throughout the city, that would vary within an inch?
Certainly.
Was your transmission just sitting very low?
Well, no, the manhole cover, you can see it. It's like this.
Are you saying it's more than an inch, then? Do we have a disagreement over the fact?
Well, it looks to me like it is. I didn't think to go out there with a ruler and measure it, but it looks to me, instead of being flat, it's rounded.
Yeah. Are we measuring it from the edge of the manhole cover to the closest pavement, or are we measuring it from where a car might drive? In other words, if it's 2 feet from the tires and that's the lowest point, could it be higher than an inch in the middle?
I believe it was from the surface of the street to the top of the manhole cover.
Are we getting into a situation here where we wouldn't have the discretion to pay because there was no prior notice? Is that the issue facing us?
That is true.
Okay.
Yes.
So regardless of the distance, state law is going to advise us, or basically laid out for us, that we are not allowed to pay?
Correct. There was no prior notice.
I was afraid of that. Any other comments or questions or advice? Yeah, Brian.
I think it's probably common knowledge what a pothole is, and people driving by can see a pothole. I'm not sure that somebody would be able to call and say, hey, there's a manhole cover high enough to rip my oil pan off, and be able to give prior notice. I'm pretty mechanically inclined, but I wouldn't have anticipated that being the case. But I do remember specifically maybe about a year ago that Gary had brought up and mentioned that a lot of the manhole covers around, when they go over and they resurface, they don't do anything with them. And so they're below the surface of the street enough that it is like hitting a pothole. And to me, something like this is a responsibility of the city to make sure that the manhole covers are acceptable. And to me, that does not look acceptable.
Well, if it's an inch, is that acceptable to you?
I mean, going 25 miles an hour and hitting it an inch would be like hitting an object in the street and could do damage, I would think. And so what I'm saying is that I don't know how the average person would have the expertise to say that could be a problem. I need to report that. If they've never, this lady has the expertise now because she's ripped the oil pan off of her car. But I wouldn't have thought that far through to be able to call and report that, hey, there is a defect that could cause problems with cars. And I think that's when we get into sometimes the semantics of it and the ability of this council not to be able to do what I think is just the common thing, to me, I mean, ma'am, is that mark in the street, is that your oil?
Yes, that's my transmission fluid. It tore my transmission and my oil pan both. But that's my transmission fluid. It ripped the transmission pan back. It broke the 2 front bolts off, and it ripped the pan. I was going to bring the pan with me. There's pictures of the pan that I sent in, and the transmission fluid was pouring out. Then there was a slice in my oil pan, so it's transmission and oil fluid.
Mayor, I just asked...
I had to have it towed home.
Asked legal, regardless of debating the 1-inch difference in the surface, are there any extenuating circumstances in a case like this that state law would give us the discretion?
I would say on that, the only thing I would say on it is that it's rusted. It's obviously been out there for a long time. However, if council thinks that, that it's open and obvious that someone would damage their car by driving over this, and a majority of council thinks that, you could say that that's a fact that shows that we should have had knowledge of the defect and you could pay it. But based on what we had, our judgment was that it's been out there for quite a while. I'm sure many cars have driven over it, and there haven't been any damage to any vehicles. But.
Well, just a couple of final comments. We have the physical evidence that it did the damage because you have the evidence on the street. Second of all, the idea that somebody with the city went out there and put cones around it, if there wasn't a problem, they wouldn't have put the cones around it.
That's after she reported it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, but obviously the city staff thinks that there's a problem with it, or they wouldn't have put cones around it.
What evidence do you have that, or does our legal staff have, that clearly shows that driving over a manhole that the manhole that has a cover on it that may not be to whose specifications in reference to being flush with the concrete, that this caused, did you say a transmission or your oil pan?
Transmission and oil pan.
Your oil pan set that low that when you drove over this, that just
it sits high up off, the manhole cover was high up off the ground, and my car sits low to the ground.
So was the manhole cover setting upside down?
I don't know. In the picture I have, it's like this instead of flat.
But these pictures are flat. Do you have a picture that shows the manhole when you ran over it?
Yeah.
That was a picture that the claimant provided.
I sent a picture of all, because I put cones around all of the manholes, and on the back of the pictures I put the first one, because the first one's the one I hit when you turn off the walker.
So you hit more than one manhole?
No, but there was 3 or 4 on that street, and they put cones around all of them to be repaired after I called.
Have we done anything to correct the situation or change the situation?
Amy, do you know the answer to that? Have they done any work out there?
Have they done any work out there? I believe that since then, since they got the call, that they've gone out there and checked the manholes. And, anytime that we get a call from a citizen that there's a problem with something, they'll go out and check the site and put cones around until they can get out there and see if there's any work that needs to be done in that area.
Did they do any work? Do you know if they identified enough of a problem that they did any work? Or
no, I don't believe so.
My question again is, did our staff have any pictures of this manhole turned upside down or halfway, setting in this hole that she claims that was the cause of the damage to her car? I can't believe that just driving over the manhole that y'all have given us a picture of, just flush, is going to tear the oil pan out of a vehicle. If that's the case, then we just might as well open up the door and give open announcement to every citizen out here that after December the 24th, as a result of the snowstorm, that everybody need to come in here and make a claim in reference to driving over potholes. And if a person can't see that this is a manhole that's all over this city, just driving, and this is a picture that's just flush. We talk about an inch of this or a half an inch of that. I don't see where this could have caused the damage of a vehicle as far as tearing off damaging a oil pan. It just don't make any sense to me. Just looking at the picture that we have, and I can't see anything on this cell phone, ma'am, so I apologize. But I would have thought that if the picture that was there from...
Can you illuminate it and let me look at it?
From the original incident, why we don't have a picture from the original incident?
My understanding is that, I mean, the pictures that the council members have right now is a copy of a picture that was provided by the claimant.
Okay.
Car sits low, and it just hit that, and it actually ripped the pan back off of my transmission. And it cost, like, I took it to the garage, it's over $3,000 to fix the car. I make a car payment. I got it fixed by a mechanic for under $500, and that's a miracle in itself. And the transmission's still messed up. And I'm unemployed, have to make, I'm trying to survive. And then they wanted, I got my electric turned off, getting my car repaired.
You all want to look at it?
Mayor, does it appear that the road bed itself, even before looking at the cover, is sloped in the center?
I can't see it, that it is. Might be.
I mean, most streets are crowned in the middle for runoff, and the manhole cover is in the middle of the street, which would lead me to believe common sense would be that the pavement is sloping away from the manhole cover. So the further you get away from the manhole cover, the lower the pavement's going to get. So while it may be an inch right at the pavement, it may be 3 inches depending on the slope. I mean, maybe it should have higher clearance. I don't know.
What is the address of this location?
South 12th and Walker.
South 12th and Walker?
Yes.
Has there been any other claims submitted as a result of the manholes that's on the same particular area, that's in the same particular area, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Larry? Yeah, as we look at this, I'm going to move for a 2-week deferral to get some additional information, because in looking at this, I'd like to know, I think, whether or not work had been done prior to this particular incident, and this road was left in this condition, and has there been any remedial work done after that that says, in effect, this was some type of a defect? Because that would be on one side, and on the other side, quite frankly, looking at this, I can't see how a car would be damaged by this unless the car itself was, quote, out of spec, unquote. So I think there's a question of fact here that rather, before we rule on it, I'm going to move for a 2-week deferral to get some additional information.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Do you want to say anything before we defer this item for 2 weeks? Okay. Cast your votes on the deferral of this item. Item is deferred 2 weeks. What we're going to do is try to gather some additional information. I suspect there may be some council people that want to go out and see it in person. You may or may not want to come back in 2 weeks. It won't be required, but we will deal with it in 2 weeks, hopefully, and come to some sort of conclusion. I don't want to lead you in one direction or the other. Just telling you that we'll try to decide in 2 weeks.
All right. Will I receive a letter before the 2 weeks, whether it's still
yes,
or declined, or I will?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your time and coming down today. All right, we want to vote on the rest of the claims for denial. I guess, there's 2 other items.
They're stricken.
Oh, they're both stricken? So we're good on 8K? All right. We're on to 8. Item 9, then. These are claims recommended for approval. Comments or questions on item 9? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 10 is items from council. Pat, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's really good to be back. You don't appreciate the benefits we enjoy living in the United States until you go someplace else where there is such abject poverty and confusion. It's good to be back. I apologize for missing those meetings, but it was was very educational. That's all. Thank you.
Skip? And Meg?
Yes, I have just a couple of things. First, back on the subject of graffiti, I'd really like to thank Chief City and his team and our Development Services Group with Charles Locke and crew and Jim Sconzo from Community Action Agency and our own City Action Agency all came together last week to have a public meeting here, primarily focused on Mount St. Mary's and Capitol Hill neighborhood. The chambers were full with citizens. We have a problem in South Oklahoma City with regard to particularly graffiti and some higher than average crime statistics, and I just want to, I guess, assure the neighbors and that we take this problem very seriously. Chief City opened the meeting by saying that one of the good things about this meeting today is they don't have to convince us that we have a problem. We believe that we have a problem and we're going to address it. And I just saw nothing but great teamwork, and I appreciate the input of the citizens that were here. Second, I really want to congratulate Stockyards City. On Thursday, there was a ribbon cutting of the fabulous new gateway arch going into the Stockyards. And, I think it's maybe 20 or 25 years in the dream that this would ultimately happen, and it's just fantastic. There were the marshals on horseback, and it was a beautiful afternoon. And so I encourage everybody to go down and see the new gateway. Third thing, and I will try to be brief, but also on Thursday, the students at Capitol Hill High School had an incredibly moving experience, and they had an opportunity to meet a young woman whose name is Liz Murray. She was featured in a Lifetime movie called Homeless to Harvard, and this is a young woman that grew up literally homeless in the Bronx and found a mentor in her life. She completed 4 years of high school in 2 years, got straight A's. She applied to the New York Times for a scholarship and was awarded this scholarship, and she's now a Harvard graduate, and she's going there for her master's degree. It's an incredible story of, just how you make the right choices and how every day, every single one of us is faced with the opportunity to do something mediocre or excel. And I think the Capitol Hill students were so moved by her presentation, and she did a great job, and I hope someday we can have her back in Oklahoma City. Last thing, and I'm sorry to take so much time, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that applications are available for the Youth Council. Those applications will be accepted through April 2nd. And each year we have 18 youth counselors, 2 from each ward, and then 2 are selected at large. And their selection would be based on their application and review. Students need to be residents of Oklahoma City. They need to have at least a 3.0 GPA. They need 2 letters of recommendation and to be able to demonstrate an interest in both government and community service. This is a program that's co-sponsored by the City of Oklahoma City and Youth Leadership Exchange, which is part of Leadership Oklahoma City. And if anybody would like additional information, they can contact Mary Walsh at 463-3340 or go to the web at YLX, stands for Youth Leadership Exchange, at lokc.org. Thank you.
You're welcome. Brian?
Well, I just want to echo Meg's comments on the graffiti stuff. I did want to make one editorial comment on that, though, that everything south of the river doesn't have graffiti on it. It is small, isolated incidents, and we do have beautiful and nice places in South Oklahoma City. It's not all covered by graffiti. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Larry?
I see Mr. Sipe out there. Thank you for inviting us to the awards banquet to see the firemen receive their awards. I guess the most moving thing to me at the whole thing was to see the film of the fires that the firemen had to fight there and the danger that they incur every day to protect us. Very vivid and very graphic. Thank you, sir.
Sam?
2 things, Mayor. I appreciate, Jim, the presentation on truancy with the introduction of our ordinance. Not that that's precedent from here on out, because I recognize that many ordinances that we don't need presentations at the introduction, but it was helpful and productive. Secondly, I wanted to mention attending same night as firefighters, the annual Police Athletic League Award Banquet down at the FOP headquarters. Deputy Chief Ken McDonald, Ed Hill, and Captain Brian Jennings were part of the police contingent providing the leadership to this program. But really, equally impressive was this room full of Hispanic, African American, Native American parents who mentor and coach some 2,400 young people in the past year, soccer, basketball, and baseball. And just an amazing continuous line of award recognition of just some good old working folks giving their time to this kind of an effort. And Sandridge Energy in the past year has become the primary corporate sponsor with Police Athletic League, and it was just very, very special to see this police community partnership award ceremony and be part of it Saturday night. Appreciate it very much.
Jim, City Manager reports?
Nothing to add this morning, sir.
All right. Citizens to be heard? Has anyone signed up? All right. We have executive session. We'll be back.